Hey, it's Matt Moscona. You found it, your home for the latest content on your favorite team, the LSU Tigers. And we're powered by BetUS. Remember, this football season, earn a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. Check out BetUS in the description on this video. LSU had the day off on Thursday, but they got better for the future. This was expected, but made it official. 4-star defensive back out of Nashville, CJ Jimcoily, picked LSU over Stanford. That was the other finalist. I know that sounds weird. Like, you don't typically have an LSU-Stanford battle an awful lot in recruiting, but it's kind of what this came down to. But make no mistake, CJ Jimcoily had offers from, like, everybody. He's from Nashville. He had the Tennessee offer. He had an offer from Alabama. I mean, you can go down the list, which is a very, very long and distinguished list. Oklahoma, Louisville, Auburn, Michigan, Penn State, Missouri, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Michigan State, Texas A&M, Miami, Georgia Tech, Nebraska, Florida, Maryland, and North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Purdue, Duke, Indiana. There's a whole nother page here that I'm not even going to bother to click on because I think you get the point. The point is, CJ Jimcoily is a highly regarded guy, 6'3", 210, out of Lipscomb Academy in Nashville. LSU's looking at playing him at the star position as he starts his career in Baton Rouge and Blake Baker's defense. That's where Major Burns is playing right now. That's where we've seen Juwan Johnson, the freshman, lining up right now as well. There's a couple of things about this that I think are really significant. One of them is the fact that Jake Olson and Frank Wilson took the lead here. And it's important because of Frank Wilson, because even though Jimcoily is from Nashville, his dad is from New Orleans. And the tie with Frank Wilson is one of the things that got this, made this really sort of like a warm lead for LSU. Jimcoily, after committing, told On3, the coaching staff and the environment at LSU felt like family. In Louisiana, it's different. My dad is from Louisiana. I have family there, and that's how the people are in that state. It's a big family in Louisiana. The people at LSU that recruited me made me feel that way. That feeling was different from anywhere else. He also said, specifically about, when we talk about Frank Wilson, he specifically mentioned how his dad was at O. Perry Walker when Frank Wilson was the coach and how big of a deal that was. Now, the two of them talked and communicated throughout this process. Like, Frank Wilson continues to be a huge factor in LSU landing players not only in New Orleans, but in this case, with family member from the New Orleans area. Here's the quote that CJ Jimcoily gave on 3. He said, when we talked to Coach Frank, that was a highlight for us for a lot of reasons. My dad went to O.P. Walker when Wilson was there as a coach. My grandmother still lives in New Orleans, so we still have a lot of uncles and cousins there. The LSU visit, it was like being around home. And when we met Coach Frank, that was one of my longest talks. So over and over again, you continue to see why Frank Wilson has so much incredible value, not only the staff as a great coach, but in building the roster as a recruiting coordinator. And it was one of the first hires Brian Kelly made and continues to be one of the most fruitful and impactful hires. So that's part of it. Number 2, obviously, you beat out Bama and Tennessee, among others. But among the finalists, it was LSU, Stanford, Bama, Tennessee. And when you're going toe-to-toe with big-time schools in your conference and you beat them, you understand why that's significant. And also for the reason we talk about here from time to time, which is if you're going to think of it on the flip side. We always talk about how you never want to lose a player, an in-state player, to a conference opponent because you never want to see him again, right? Like what we talked about the late Joe McKnight. When he went to USC, that sucked, but he was on the West Coast, so you never saw him again. When Devontae Smith went to Alabama, that sucked because you had to play him every year. When Cedric Van Pran went to Georgia, that sucked because you were trying to figure out your offensive line, and this was a stud playing in your conference. So now you turned the trick on Tennessee. That's a kid from the state of Tennessee. You played high school football in Nashville. Tennessee was a finalist. You went in there and you beat out Tennessee for CJ Jimcoily. It's another reason that's big. And look, the other part of rebuilding DBU, of course, you've got to coach these players up. You got to get them to play better. And Corey Raymond is doing that, and I think Jake Olson's doing that. They're going to be better because they're going to be fundamentally sound and just better players. But you also have to close that gap with talent. And the talent hasn't been here in a couple of years now. And you can start to see how they're fixing that. If you heard our practice report on Wednesday, one of the things I noticed when LSU was going scout defense, or I guess they were going scout, they were playing the first, second, 13 defense against the scout offense. But one of the things I noticed when LSU was lining up its defense, there were 3 true freshmen in the secondary on the 2 deep. When LSU's second defense was out there, Juwan Johnson, Deshaun Spears, P.J. Woodland, 3 true freshmen in the secondary that were all out there running on the 2 deep. I mean, just think about, like, they are just forcing their young players onto the field because their young players are better than what they've had. And look at what you have coming up. DJ Pickett, 5-star, number 1 corner in the country. Now you get CJ Jimcoily, a high 4-star, who I'd offer from everybody. You know, Jace Thomas, a kid from Destrehan, they're very high on. You have a hat on the table for Jonah Williams, the number 1 safety in America. You also are a finalist for Bryce Fitzgerald, who's going to be out of Florida, who's going to be announcing next week on the 17th. So Bryce Fitzgerald on the 17th, Jonah Williams on the 24th. You may even further continue to stockpile talent in this secondary in the next 2 weeks on top of Jimcoily and DJ Pickett, who you already have. So we expected when Corey Raymond was rehired that LSU was going to be fruitful in recruiting again, that they were going to load up the coffers and be very talent-rich again. And very quickly, you're starting to see that. And they're not even done yet for 2025 and certainly just getting started for 2026. So CJ Jimcoily picks the LSU Tigers. We had Shea Dixon on with us earlier this week, and we asked Shea about Jimcoily. Here's what he said.
We're talking about a kid who's 6'3", 210, so massive safety.
Wow.
But he had told me a month ago this was coming down to LSU or Stanford, and we don't see that battle much. Jimcoily said, look, my parents were blown away on the Stanford official visit, and my dad's from New Orleans, and they said when it comes to family discussions about my recruitment, my mom doesn't really need my dad to chime in because my dad's from New Orleans and wants me to go to LSU. So I think she wanted to see what did academics and football look like at LSU, and that official visit was at the end of June. So it is lining up for LSU to get another 4-star here at safety end.
And they did. And for LSU now, after getting CJ Jimcoily, that makes 20 commitments for the class of 2025, the 3rd-ranked class nationally, 2nd in the SEC, and they're continuing to build. CJ Jimcoily in this class adds beyond 5 stars like Bryce Underwood, DJ Pickett, Derek Meadows, Harlem Berry, and they just continue to build an incredibly impressive class. As much as we talk about this team and this program recruiting Louisiana, sometimes it's worth going out of the state when you're talking about elite-level prospects, and CJ Jimcoily certainly qualifies. Thanks so much for watching the video. Remember, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And our channel is powered by BetUS. 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits, up to $2,000. All the info and the link in the description below.